Hello everyone, this is Jotto and welcome to the Hearthstone Weekly Show. Now for this week we're going to have a little bit of a shorter show and I'll explain why when we get to the second half of it. But first things first topic is basically what the hell I'm doing next week, because next week's video schedule is nuts. So basically, for anyone who hasn't heard, Naxxramas is coming out on Tuesday. So I've got a lot of work to do. So on Tuesday I'm releasing the weekly show. Yes, on a Tuesday, not on a weekend. That is going to be the Naxxramas set review done with my teammate Birdie. Then on Wednesday, Versus series is coming out. Now this is a different series from the one that you actually saw earlier this week. I appreciate all the feedback I got on it, but I'm trying to get it up on sort of Hearthstone and marketing with different teams, giving my team some more practice as well. So I'm changing the series up a bit. It's changing to a similar format, however it's going to be each week an Acebreaker player plays against a fairly well-known pro player or community player who's sort of at a fairly high level, and they play deck elimination. The exact format I'll talk about at the beginning of the video, but it's basically deck elimination best of 3, but you bring 3 decks, and then I'm going to commentate over it. And for this week it's actually going to be Birdie again. He's coming on for the set review, and then he's going to be on the versus Blackout, who used to be the MYM team captain. So we've got some fairly big people coming in to actually play against us, and hopefully it works out really well. Putting a lot of work into it with editing, and so I've been fairly busy. So yeah, that's a lot of work for me. And then on Thursday, I think Thursday, yeah, I'm releasing Thursday or Friday, depending on timing. Obviously, I'm releasing a Naxxramas First Wing, the Arachnid Quarter playthrough. So I'm going to play through the whole wing and record it. Then on Friday I'm releasing the class challenges. So let's just say that my next week's video making is going to be slightly crazy. So we'll have to see how that pans out. But I'm basically going to have a day every single day after Tuesday. So hope you guys enjoy that, and without further ado, let's go on to the actual weekly show, shall we? Now, on to the weekly, we've got Loatheb. Now, this is going to be a shorter weekly because I don't have much to talk about, and I didn't want to do like I Hearth You King the Hill or something, because I'm doing 3 games back to back to back. If you think about it, like 2 versus series and a game, I'd rather sort of space those out a bit more than just doing them week after week after week. So we're going to talk about the new spoiler card that was put out by Blizzard, called Loatheb. Which was sort of leaked. They changed it a bit, but it was sort of leaked back with the leak with like Kel'Thuzad and such. Random plug, by the way, on Hearthstone. We've got deck spotlight that Shiv did. I actually turned up on that video, so by all means go check that out. It's on Hearthstone, and this was the deck that I was actually featuring. It was also the one I played in Zotac today with a couple minor changes with tournaments. So just a random plug there. But anyway, on to Loatheb. He is a 5-mana 5/5. 5 drops. 5 drops are usually quite bad, so hopefully he's going to be a good card. Spoiler, he is. Legendary. Battlecry. Enemy spells cost 5 more next turn. That's an insane effect. Now, the original Loatheb that was leaked was Battlecry minions cost 5 more to play, which we thought was pretty insane. Shut down a lot of stuff. This is better, I think. It's not permanent, though, but it doesn't affect your side of the board. It only affects your opponent's spells. Now, because it only affects your opponent's spells, it means that you basically play this on turn 5 and they can't remove it without minions. So they can't remove it without minions at all. They can't Siphon Soul it, they can't use Wraths on it, they can't use Eviscerates, nothing. Nothing about that. You can't even use Prep. Prep costs 5. Wrap your head around that. Prep costs 5, so you can't use any of that stuff. Now, this is arguably the best 5-drop in the game because, and it might be the best card in the set. We'll have to see how high of a power level the rest of the set has. Because you can play this against a control deck and break it. And against combo decks, like you're at 18 life against a rogue. But you need like 2 turns to kill him. You just play Loatheb. He can't combo you. He can't even respond to your board, so you just kill him. Freeze Mage. They play Alexstrasza. You BGH it, play Loatheb, pop their ice block because they didn't freeze your board that turn. You now win the game. They need a second ice block, and they have to skip their turn and hope you don't have a way of bouncing Loatheb or healing. So basically they just lost the game to this 5-drop. Against Priest, they can't even respond to it, although Priest is not really even an argument. Although I think post-Nax, Dark Cultist is going to make them quite powerful. So Priest definitely can't deal with this. In fact, this in response to like a Yeti or something, you just kill the Yeti and there's nothing they can do about it, unless they're one of the classes with the ping hero power. So there aren't any drawbacks to this thing at all, I would say. I mean, it is a battle cry, but besides that, it doesn't draw a card like a Zero Drake, but I think the effect is more powerful in drawing a card. It's in exchange for drawing a card, you get a 5-drop that's unkillable for a turn, more or less. And it also protects your board. You can play this in aggro decks or tempo decks to stop your opponent from board wiping your board entirely. They can't even play the spell. It shuts down equality combos. They can't even play the equalities because they cost 7. It's just insane. There's so much stuff that shuts down. It does not shut down weapons though, only spells. But on top of that, you can play it in the Druid mirror match if you innervate it out before he uses his innervates. He can't play his innervates, which just shuts down the Druid mirror early game. And I mean, I'm talking about Druid with this because they can ramp it out, which is nuts. But there's a lot of other applications. Tempo decks take a huge boost from this. You have board control from turn 1 to 4 anyway. Then you play this in turn 5. You now have board control up until turn 7. Because they can't remove anything, they just have to keep playing minions and hope for the best. While you can play as many spells that you can play as many removal spells as you want. You can still play your eviscerates, your backstabs, or like your executes, no matter like depending on which tempo deck you're playing. Some of the slower aggro decks, I mean, Zoo might play it, although it might be a little slow, but Zoo might play it as a 5-drop. We shall see. I mean, some of them did play 5-mana Sylvanas back when that was a thing, so they might play the 5-mana Loatheb. Now, this breaks Miracle in half. This is the big thing. So if you play it on turn 5, they cannot conceal their Auctioneer, so they have to wait for a turn. If they play Auctioneer Conceal, you just play Loatheb and they can't draw any cards, so they probably lose the game because they can't respond to your board for 2 turns in a row. So they're more or less just doomed. And that's just how it's going to work against Miracle. And you can play it, like, you can just develop your board, and you're thinking, oh, I don't want him to Blade Flurry me. Play Loatheb, he can't Blade Flurry you anymore. It's crazy. It does so well against combo decks and control decks. And this is the kind of thing I was asking Blizzard to do a couple weeks ago when I was talking about Miracle Rogue and Burst Meta and things like that, is you want ways of interacting with these combo decks, and this is a way of interacting with these combo decks. It's crazy. It stops Savage Roar combo, stops any crazy spell power swipes that normally 5-mana minions die to very easily. It's just a nuts card. It really is. It's an absolutely crazy card that is probably going to see play in most decks. Probably not all, because the 5 mana can be a little restraining in some aggro decks, but it's definitely going to see play in it's going to see play in pretty much every single mid-range deck, most control decks, maybe some combo decks to break the mirror match. I mean, if you have Loatheb in your deck instead of one Azure Drake in the mirror match, you just win in Miracle because it's so powerful in that matchup. It's really good against Handlock as well. It's just good against everything, even against Warlock, like Zoo. Even against Zoo, they can't Soulfire it. Like, a lot of Zoo players deal with these random 5-drops by just Soulfiring them, and that's how they get them out of the way so they can keep attacking. No, they can't. They cannot Soulfire a Loatheb. And Loatheb actually protects you from something like Doomguard Soulfire because they can't play the Soulfire on that turn. It's nuts. Like, it really is crazy. So the Soulfire costs 5. Mortal Coil costs 6. That's a big deal. Some of the other ones you can't play are things like Frostbolt, Frost Nova, Blizzard, all the secrets. You're actually going to see Freeze Mages start playing their Ice Block on turn 3 if they have it. And the reason is because if they just freeze your board, like, they freeze your board and they don't have time, they don't want to play the Ice Block, so they just freeze your board. You then play Loatheb and they die. You play Loatheb and then next turn they can't interact with anything because they don't have any way of stopping your damage anymore. So you just play a Savage Roar or something, or just attack with everything since your board is probably quite large at this point, and they just die. Like, it's a super powerful effect, giving it's essentially silencing your opponent for a turn, which is absolutely crazy. It's a very powerful effect, and I like where Blizzard is going with the whole minion focus thing as opposed to spells. I think it's a little too overpowered. I would like to see it be a 5/4 for 5, so Argent Commander can kill it. That's a big deal. I think Argent Commander should be able to kill this thing. But the 5/5 for 5 is an insane body to have on a 5-drop. That's same level as Stranglethorn Tiger, which is a big body on a 5-drop, 10 stats for a 5-drop, and the effect is crazy. This could have been a 6-drop. Just to let you know. Also, 4 5s. Where's the 5th one? There's 4 5s on this card. I want a 5th 5. But anyway, this could have been a 6-drop, and they made it a 5-drop. They pushed it. I want it to be a 5-drop. I do think that the health is a bit too high, though. I would like to see it die to Argent Commander, but I think it being a 5-drop is perfect. We don't need more 6-drop legendaries. There's so many of them. So, 5-drop, perfect. The health is a bit too high, though. I think this card is a little too overpowered. It's definitely going to shake up the metagame massively. It might be the best card in the set. We'll have to see when me and Birdie go over the entire set for the set review next week, but I do think that this might be in contention for being simply the best card in the set. It is really that good. Like, it really is. It is that good. The explanations on this are just crazy. And by all means, something else, if you guys want to sort of throw together Naxxramas decks, since Loatheb is on the deck builder for Hearthbone, and you want me to sort of go over them, just post the link in the comments, and I'll have a look at it, and I'll write back to you, because I think a lot of people are having issues with the whole Naxxramas thing, sort of trying to figure out which goes where, and we'll have to see. I am going to be doing a versus series for each wing, by the way. Each wing, basically, a wing comes out on Tuesday/Wednesday, and the versus series comes out on Wednesday. So the day after each wing, the previous wing's versus series is going to come out. So it's sort of a, like, this is how you should have done it type of thing. But Loatheb, I think he's going to come out in the 2nd or 3rd wing, I want to say. There was a overview, I do believe, of where the bosses are. So let me just check this. Loading issues there. 2nd wing. That's a lot, actually. So we got the 1st wing with Makesna, which we know the Makesna card. And then we've got Loatheb. Baron Rivendare is going to be 3rd. That's good, actually, because Baron Rivendare is not a card you want out until some of the other death rattles are out. And then Kel'Thuzad and such are going to be lost, for obvious reasons. But Loatheb is going to be the 2nd legendary that you can play. Makesna is going to be the 1st one, or Maxna, which was the 5 mana 2/8, I want to say, with the Emperor Cobra ability. So Loatheb and it's spelled Makesna, it's pronounced Maxna. I need to remember this. Loatheb and Maxna are going to be the first ones to come out. I think Loatheb is going to have a bigger impact than Maxna is, but Maxna is still going to be a very, very powerful card, and I'm definitely going to be playing it in my Hunter builds. I think that Loatheb is going to go in practically every deck. Maxna is probably going to go in a lot of Hunter decks, and maybe some of the other ones, since the Emperor Cobra ability is really, really powerful. But Loatheb is definitely going to go in every deck. Almost every deck. I don't know, maybe there's some sort of spell deck. No, you can't play spell decks with Loatheb around, because you can't do anything for a turn. There's going to be probably some aggro decks that don't want to play it, like Shockedin. But Loatheb is absolutely crazy against Shockedin, because they play their entire hand down. It's obvious they have Divine Favor in their hand. You play Loatheb, and then you just trade with everything on their board, and now they can't Divine Favor, so they just lose. Like, just random interactions like that. You'd be surprised how much people depend on spells. Like, people depend on spells a lot, even when there aren't that many in the decks themselves. Spell usage is one of the main things that people do. Even things like Zoo play spells, although Zoo is the least affected by the Loatheb effect, because only Soulfire is really up. Oh, Power Overwhelming is also up, which can be really, really annoying. And Soulfire means that you can't, like, combo Soulfires with Leroy or something. That could actually be relevant. But Soulfire is the least affected out of all those spells. Every other class, though, is massively affected. Every other archetype. Handlock gets shut down by Loatheb. Like, if you play Giant, they big game Hunter it, and then you can play like a Drake or something. They just play Loatheb. You can't remove anything on their board. You can't Soulfire anything. You can't Shadow Flame. You can't Hellfire. It's so good at locking people out. The other interaction I want to talk about, which is something I'm going to try, by the way, as soon as Loatheb comes out, is the Loatheb Tempo Lock. Now, the Loatheb Tempo Lock is the concept I came up with yesterday, which was Tempo Rogue playing a Shadow Step. Now, we've seen Tempo Rogues play one Shadow Step before. However, this could actually come up in a game, which is Loatheb on turn 5. They can't play any spells, so you get in for like 8 damage, because you probably have like a Yeti on the board or something. Then you Shadow Step Loatheb after attacking, and play it again. Get him for another 10 damage for free, and they can't respond to it again. You now just got in for 20 damage, and your opponent had no way of responding at all. That is something to think about. That is crazy. That is absolutely crazy. Youthful Brewmaster not so much because it doesn't decrease the cost, but I think there could be a Shadow Step deck that does not run Leroy. There could be, I mean, it might run Leroy, but there's a Shadow Step. There could be a Shadow Step deck that runs Loatheb and more mid-rangey stuff, and I think that's awesome. And I think it's going to be really, really crazy. Some of the things Loatheb does bring down a bit, as I said, all the Miracle Rogue stuff. Most of the Druid spells are unaffected. I want to say Swipe is the major one that's affected, as is the combo. However, Innervate and Wild Growth are going to be less affected because they usually played before turn 5. And on top of that, things like Wrath are usually played before turn 5, so it's mostly going to be Swipe, Starfall, and Force of Nature Savage Roar that are affected by this thing. Which, I mean, it's still a major thing, but I think Druid is actually getting stronger, depending on the rest of the set, obviously, but just including Loatheb, Druid is getting stronger, because they can abuse Loatheb over anyone else, because they can ramp it out on turn 4, and like, if you think about it, it's a turn 4 5/5 that your opponent can't respond to. That's good enough. Like, you don't need to. People were talking about situational Loathebs, and you have to wait and things like that. Yeah, against Freeze Mage, yes. Against Freeze Mage, you wait. However, against, because the effect is powerful, but against, like, most decks, if you're playing Druid, you just play on turn 4. They can't respond to your 5/5. I'm okay with this. Like, not being able to respond to your 5/5 after you play it after a Yeti is just insane. Like, they can't do anything. And they just take a bunch of damage they don't want to, and it only affects you. And, like, it only affects your opponent, it doesn't affect you, which is just absolutely crazy. It's definitely one of the strongest cards they've ever designed for Hearthstone. I think that some of the alpha cards may come close. So old Sylvanas, 5 mana 5/5, was pretty insane, and I think this is actually better than old Sylvanas. And some of the other things you can look at are, let's see, what else has been really, really powerful over time? 7/6 Illidan, I want to say. No, that wasn't too bad. 10/10 Giants. I think this is on the same level as Twilight Drake, the old Twilight Drake. No, this is better than the old Twilight Drake, so you could silence the old Twilight Drake. So it was a 10/10, but you could silence it to a 1/1. So, is this like on the same level as 10/10 Giants? I think it's on the same level as 10/10 Giants. Less powerful in Handlock, but more powerful in every other deck. That's crazy. Like, if we have the power meter, we've got like 10/10 Giants, 8 mana Pyroblast and Mind Control, like at the same level, and we've got like 10/10 Twilight Drakes, along with like 3/2 Stealth Flame Imp, and 5 mana Force of Nature. And then we keep going down. I think Loatheb is actually at the top. And we've got like, also in that region, we've also got like 5 mana Sylvanas and things like that. So, yeah, I think this is actually one of the better cards they've ever made. I mean, is it good for the game? Yes, I'm going to say. Like, okay, so this is something I want to clear up as my sort of final point, is that a lot of people are complaining that this is bad for the game because it's overpowered. No, that is not how overpowered cards work. And yes, I'm aware I'm spending a lot of time talking about Loatheb, but he's like the best card they've released so far. So that's not how it works, by the way. If a card is everywhere, that's not a bad thing. Look at Novice Engineer. Novice Engineer was everyone. No one complained. Why? Because Novice Engineer is not an unfair card. It was just good. Like, it was an overpowered card, but it was not unfair. People played it because it smoothed out your draws. No one ever felt, oh my god, it's a Novice Engineer. Like, that never really happened. People never really got pissed off at the Novice Engineer. If they buffed it a bunch, yes, they did, but not originally. Now, if you look at things like Argent Commander, yeah, people got pissed off at it a bit more, but not so much. You look at other cards that have been everywhere. Sylvanas, that irritates people a lot. Pyroblast decks, that was a problem. 10/10 Giants, problem. Things like that. Those were the actual major issues. The other balance issues that I think are actually bad for the game are things like Gadget Zam being overpowered in some situations. Spells being too good. That is not a good thing for the game. However, if you look at this, we've got an overpowered 5-drop that is a 5 mana 5/5 that has to be interacted with minions. How bad can that be for the game? Even if everyone plays it, it just encourages board control plays. It encourages tempo matches. Encouraging tempo matches is a big deal that Blizzard is trying to push right now, because tempo games are a lot of fun to play. If you ever play tempo mirrors, they're some of the most fun you'll ever have with Hearthstone, because you're always striving over board position, you're going backwards and forwards all game long, and it's like and then eventually one of you gains a small advantage and tries to build on it and hopes that there aren't any like top decks that screw them over, and then you win. So it's a really dynamic playstyle. And that is something they're trying to encourage with Loatheb, because they're trying to say, hey, wait a second, guys, don't do your stupid Leroy combo and kill the guy from like 20 life when he's trying to play Hearthstone. Like, that's basically what they're trying to say with Loatheb right now. And I approve of what they're doing. Like, I approve what they're doing. I think Loatheb's a little too overpowered. As I said, 5-4 for 5 would be good. But as far as I'm concerned, it's overpowered and probably need a nerf at some point, but it's not bad for the game. It's just broken. It's not bad for the game, though. It encourages a more fair and more fun form of Hearthstone in a metagame. However, the actual card itself is a little too strong. So that's sort of my final thing on Loatheb. I think it's very good for the game, and I think it's a very powerful card. Probably the best card in the set, but we'll have to see. As I said, we'll get my full opinions on it along with the Swede, Birdie, on the next weekly, which will be on Tuesday, as I said at the beginning of the video. But anyway, thank you all for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe. If you have any feedback or want to sort of ask me about any of the Naxxramas stuff and things like that, put it in the comment section below. As for now, this has been Jotto, signing off.